Okay, hi, Assalamualaikum. Welcome back to our financial analysis report for 2020 for our company 7-Eleven Malaysia Holding Berhad. Okay, my name is Muhammad Fahim bin Subli as the Chief Executive Officer or CEO. Next, we have Ezra Fitri as our Financial Manager 1, and our second Financial Manager is Azri Nazmi. Next, we have Ahmad Hafizi as our stakeholder, and lastly, Aiman Fitri as the banker. Okay, first of all, I would like to call Muhammad Ezra Fitri as the first financial manager to give his speech.
Thank you, Mr. Fahim, CEO for 7-Eleven Malaysian Holding Berhad. Now, I would like to talk about liquidity ratio for this company. For current ratio in 2019, this company have reached 0.55 times and in 2020 is 0.62 times. It shows that current ratio in 2020 is higher than in 2019. However, when we compare with industry average ratio, it shows the same total with 2020 which is 0.62 times. So, the remark for current ratio in 2020 is good. For quick ratio in 2019, the company have reached 0.23 times and in 2020 is 0.3 times. It shows that quick ratio in 2020 also more higher than in 2019. However, when we compare with industry average ratio that shows 0.28 times, quick ratio for this company still higher. So that the remark for the quick ratio in 2020 is good. Now we proceed to activity ratio for this company. For inventory turnover in 2019, the company have reached 0.01 times and in 2020 is 0.29 times. It shows that industry turnover 2020 is lower than in 2019. However, when we compare with industry average ratio that shows 5.39 times, inventory turnover for this company is still higher. So that the remark for industry turnover in 2020 is good. For average collection period in 2019, the company takes 12 days and in 2020 it takes 13 days. It shows that in 2020 take 1 day more than in 2019. However, industry average ratio takes 25 days and when we compare with 2020, the length of collection period in 2020 is still lower than industry average ratio. So that the remark for average collection period is good. Lastly, we have total asset turnover. Total asset turnover for 2019 is 1.66 times and in 2020 is 1.25 times. It shows that in 2020 is also lower than in 2019. However, when we compare with industry average ratio that show 1.22 times, total asset turnover for this company in 2020 is still higher than industry average ratio. So that the remark for total asset turnover for this company in 2020 is good. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Muhammad Ezra Fitri. Right now, I would like to call our second financial manager, which is Muhammad Azri Nazmi. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Fahim. Now, I will proceed with profitability ratio. Gross profit margin for 7-Eleven in 2020 is 38.39%. It was lower than year 2019, which is 31.36%, and is higher from the industry average ratio, which is just 27.6%. So the remark for gross profit margin is good. Next, operating profit margin. Operating profit margin in 2019 is 3.25% and for 2020 is 2.52%. It shows that operating profit margin in 2020 is lower than 2019. However, the industry average ratio is 4.9% and is higher from the 2020. So the remark for operating profit margin is poor. Next is net profit margin. Net profit margin in 2019 is 2.3% and for 2020 is 1.39%. It shows that net profit margin for 2020 is lower than 2019. However, net profit margin in industry average ratio has higher than 2020, which is 1.65%. So the remark for net profit margin is poor. Next, return on total asset. Return on total asset for this company in 2019 is 3.8%, and for 2020 is 1.75%. It shows that 2020 has a lower ratio than 2019. However, the industry average ratio has higher than 2020, which is 2.02%. The remark for return on total asset is poor. Next, return on equity. Return on equity in 2019 is 52.97%, and for 2020 is 21.93%. It shows that 2020 has a lower ratio than 2019. However, for the industry average ratio has 29.96%, and it was higher than 2020. So the remark for the return on equity is poor. Now, I will proceed with leverage or debt ratio. Debt ratio for 7-Eleven in 2019 is 92.82%, and in 2020 is 92.04%. It shows that the debt ratio in 2020 is lower than 2019. But it's so much different compared to the industry average ratio, which is just 58.57%. It shows that the remark for debt ratio is poor. Next, debt to equity ratio in 2019 have 1292.62%, and in 2020 have 1156.5%. It shows that 2020 have a lower ratio than 2019. However, in industry average ratio, the ratio is 1058.71%. It shows that the industry average ratio have a lower ratio than 2020. So the remark for the debt to equity ratio is poor. Lastly, time interest earned. Time interest earned in 2019 is 1.76 times, and 2020 have 1.18 times. It shows that 2020 have a lower time than 2019. However, in industry average ratio is 2.2 times, show that the industry average ratio have a time interest earned higher than 2020. So the remark for the time interest earned for this company is poor. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Azrin Azmi. So next, I would like to call our stakeholder, which is Hafizi bin Zuki. If you would like to say something, please.
Yes, but can Mr. Azri, you go back to the previous slide, the
Okay.
net profit margin. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, yes.
Alright, based on the net profit margin, there is a decrease in year 2020, but not so much compared to industry average ratio. I understand due to pandemic COVID-19, the sales of the company has decreased. However, I still want to invest in the company as usual because I believe and put my trust in the company's abilities and performance.
Okay, that's it.
Yes, that's it.
All right. Thank you for stakeholder. Okay, next I would like to call on behalf of the banker, please, Muhammad Aiman Fitri, if you have something to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fahim. Okay, my name is Muhammad Aiman Fitri. I am the representative of the Maybank. Okay, before that, can you please show the slide about the leverage ratio?
Can sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, based on your leverage ratio, it shows that your company has a poor performance. Your company debt ratio show that there is no capability to pay back the loan to us. Okay, the probability to paying back the loan to us is also low. Once again, the time interest earned ratio of your company will also show a poor performance. Okay, this problem cause your company cannot bear with the high interest from our bank. Okay, so in my estimate, I am really sorry, your company cannot make a loan for your project. Okay, owing the fact that your debt ratio is stated as high risk perspective, which is more than 30%. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, so because of the loan get rejected by the Maybank, it's okay. I would like to ask the stakeholder if you interested to invest in our next and new project. Mr. Hafizi?
Okay, as I said earlier, I'm still want to invest in the company as usual. But this time, I hope that the company will able to generate more income in the next year and pay higher dividend for my investment. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hafizi. We will, inshallah, we will. Okay, so I think that's it for our financial analysis report for the year of 2020. Okay, thank you for all the participants. Okay, thank you our banker, our stakeholder, our financial manager. Okay, thank you. I'll see you next time. Assalamualaikum.